Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 373 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Eilon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our third book is called From Letters to Leaders, Leveraging Your Fraternity or Sorority Experience to Land Your Dream Job. So go and pick up that book today on Amazon. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, today we're going to talk a little bit about sales positions, and my first sales position was a doozy. The summer of my sophomore year in college, I was selling books door to door in California for a very famous company called Southwestern. This by far is the hardest job I've ever held. You had to get accustomed to a 95% rejection rate, and for a college kid, this is not an easy task. Sure enough, I made a ton of money that summer, and it taught me some really important lessons about building rapport with people quickly and the resilience that it takes to ultimately be successful. My best day is when a Southwestern kid knocks on my door and I get to give them food, water, and a pep talk that they also will be incredibly successful in life. And I want to talk a little bit more about it. So we're going to get to our next guest. Our next guest is Katie Evans, who is first and foremost a storyteller. She realized early in her career that people learn fastest when taught in that form. Her presentations are informative, timely, and insightful. Katie believes that laughter is a powerful teaching tool and uses it liberally in her thought-provoking sessions. Everyone goes home feeling better and lighter. She delivers the perfect touch of comedy, inspiration, and timely messaging that will make your event fun, meaningful, and memorable for all. Katie's passion is supporting people and succeeding beyond their wildest dreams. Welcome to the show, Katie.
Thank you, Michael. Wonderful to be here.
Oh, fantastic. I love having you on the show because you are going to be giving us some laughs today. Now, for me, I need a laugh as I head into the weekend. So I said, we are going to talk to Katie and make this a great weekend. So let's go back to your undergraduate days. You decided on the University of Washington for your undergraduate experience. Tell our audience, why was UW your choice?
Well, actually, it was my second choice. I was born in Spokane, which is in Eastern Washington, but raised in Seattle, which is in Western Washington. And my parents were both graduates of WSU, Washington State University, in Pullman by Spokane. So I decided to trek over to Pullman to start my college adventure, and I lasted one semester. I was not a small town girl. Things had changed since my parents had been there, but it just was too small for me. Spokane started looking like the big city, and I said, let me go home. So I came back and finished up at the UW with a major in psychology and never looked back.
There you go. All right. Listen, I think it's important to know. These universities have different sizes, different towns in terms of, the infrastructure and things like that. And you need to know what's a good fit, what's not a good fit. So, you realize, hey, I'm not in the right place. I'm going to pick my stuff up and I'm going to move to a different place. And that's okay. I think it's all about finding your comfort zone. And I think it's the same way in the professional world as well. And not to knock Washington State. I'm going to be speaking there in August and I can't wait to go. They're going to have me in the basketball arena with 6,000 students at Washington State in Pullman. So
very cool.
Yeah, so they've grown quite a bit since then.
And it was a horrible winter there when I went. So it'll be a hot summer when you go.
That's right. I'm choosing very carefully when to go to Pullman. It's going to be in the summertime.
Good plan.
There you go. All right. So, the other interesting thing about you is that you and your husband, you guys owned Billy the Kid's restaurant in Renton, Washington. And then you decided after he passed away to become a hypnotherapist. So I'm wondering, why did you decide to make this move into hypnotherapy of all things?
Well, actually, if you go back, it was kind of a move into the restaurant business. I put myself through college working in restaurants, and my husband had been a columnist for the Seattle Times, so he reviewed restaurants. So we thought we knew how to run a restaurant. And we lasted about 2 years. And he passed, and I decided that I wanted to go back to my roots, back to psychology. Well, I couldn't open, a clinic or hang out my shingle with a bachelor's degree legally in Washington. So I had to decide whether I wanted to go back and get a master's or do 200 clock hours and become a hypnotherapist. And I could hang out my shingle then. So, path of least resistance, here I am. And I did that successfully for over 30 years.
Wow, that's fantastic. And I think you can use that hypnotherapy in so many different ways. Our student listeners right now, they are learning how to build rapport with people quickly. And that could be with maybe a professor of theirs. It could be a potential employer they want to build a relationship with, maybe even a potential new member in their fraternity or sorority. So, what is your advice? And maybe we can lean into hypnotherapy a little bit, but what is your advice for them to quickly build rapport with all of these new people that they're meeting?
I call it strategic listening. If you listen to people, now I'm sure you've talked about active listening on your podcast.
Sure.
Well, strategic listening is listening for certain words on top of active listening. So if you're listening to somebody and you hear them say I, me, we, they're about to tell you something about themselves. And focus on that, because the more you learn about them, the more you are able to build rapport. I got to tell you a funny story. I went on a blind date one time, and this became kind of a test that I would give men. So I'm on this blind date, and I decided I wasn't going to talk very much. I just wanted to learn about him. This man never shut up. And it didn't matter if I wanted to get a word in edgewise, I wasn't gonna. He was very wrapped up in himself. However, at the end of the date, he said, "You're the most fascinating person I've ever talked to."
Amazing.
I hardly said a word. So, and that was my new test for going out with guys, see how much they talked on the first date, and I became kind of unnecessary. So listen, and listen strategically, because people will tell you what they want. The other word to listen for is I want, I need. If you can fulfill that want or need, and sometimes you can't, then do it. And you establish the rapport, and you get the sale, and you get the promotion, and you get these, A in the class. I'm not saying, I'm just saying.
That is so interesting. I think about that all the time. When you meet new people, especially for college students, ask people for advice. Okay. And if you ask somebody for advice and then they give you their advice, this person is going to walk away from that conversation saying, you know what? That Katie, she's a smart cookie. And you're like, I mean,
understanding.
It's just human nature,
Right. Yeah.
They think that if they're listening to your advice, they must be smart.
Right. Hang on, I've got a dog that's given. Chipper, go lie down. No. Never fails, right?
Yeah.
So ask someone for advice. Whether you take it or not is optional.
Absolutely. That's up to you. But I think just posing the question is a really good way to build rapport with people, and they'll walk away thinking they just had the greatest conversation ever. So that's something to think about. The other thing that I wanted to ask you about, and I think you're a good person to ask here, is how can the college students learn how to negotiate better, maybe get a more ideal salary, or maybe get a higher position at their dream company?
First of all, you got to know what you want. And that involves thinking. Most people don't like to think all that much, but you think about and do a little inventory. What do I want? What do I want financially? What do I want socially? If it's that kind of a group, what do I want career-wise? Where do I see myself? The typical 5 years, 10 years. What do I want? And then here's the magic word. And research has been done on this. So this is evidence-based. Use the word because. Have you ever heard about that before?
No, that's a new one for me.
So if I say to you, I want to, and this is a study that actually happened back east. where people would get in, try to cut in line at Christmas at the post office. Which was a few years ago, so people still use the post office a lot. And X number would cut in line without saying anything. X number would, do you mind if I cut in line? And X number would say, do you mind if I cut in line because? And the because always was head and shoulders, the results, people let them cut in line. And they would give various different scenarios, because I'm in a hurry, because my kid's sick. Didn't seem to matter. What mattered was the word because. And then they tested, get in line. Do you mind if I get in line because? And there was never anything after because. Same result.
Wow.
I know. You know why? This is my conjecture. What was when mom said to you, or when you said to mom, why do I have to? And she said, because, and then how did it follow? What did she say after that?
I don't even know if she said anything. She was just because.
I said so.
Yeah, that's it. Right.
And people hear that because, and it triggers them to accommodate.
Right.
Isn't that cool?
That is really cool. It makes a lot of sense. I'm sure my mom has said that on numerous occasions. So I'm just being transported back to my childhood.
Exactly. And that's what happens to people. They get, oh, okay, sure. Whatever you say, mom.
You know, the other thing I've noticed about the college students is they're always stressed out every time. Like, you can tell on their face. I'm like, oh my God, how can they improve their physical and their mental well-being at college?
There's a really quick exercise, because everything has to be done quickly, because we don't have a lot of time to learn how to meditate for an hour, and we're not going to do that.
Right.
So what I do is called square breathing, where you breathe into the count of 4, hold it to the count of 4, breathe out to the count of 4, and hold it to the count of 4. And do that 3 or 4 times. And you can do it in the middle of a class, in the middle of a test, wherever you are. And it just brings everything back down. Square breathing. Very simple, very effective, and you can use it anywhere.
I love it. I'm going to have to try that next time I get into a fight with my kids. Just square breathing.
Or teach them.
Before I explode on them.
Right.
So, the other thing is that many of the college students that I talk to, they're going to end up in a sales position. A lot of them initially because it has that potential for big earnings. A lot of the guys I talk to, they want to hit it big quickly. Like, that's what they're thinking about is right now, how do I make $100,000 tomorrow? So what is your advice in terms of getting them to sell more of a particular product or service?
First of all, you got to know your product inside out, upside down, and backwards. You have to love it and believe in it. And then use the because. There's also another technique called the foot in the door technique, or now when I was in college, it was the foot in the door technique. And now it's called the yes set. Get them to say yes. See how you're nodding?
Yeah.
Get them to say yes. May I have a glass of water? Can I pet your dog? And ask several questions that the answer is going to be yes.
Right.
And nod while you're doing it. You're building rapport, and they nod back. And then you sell your product, do your strategic listening. You've got to fill a need, and you've got to fill it better than anybody else. That's the basics. The rest, the rapport, will help you create the sale. And I think there's so many books on establishing rapport, and I've got a great picture. I should put that on my website. I'm going to put a picture on my website of 2 young girls in maybe it's gymnastics or ballet class, and they're mirroring each other, and it's so effortless and it's so easy that they're doing it. Are you familiar with mirroring?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay. So just mirror somebody, but do it effortlessly, do it easily, not.
Well, you definitely know how to sell. There's no question about it. You know what it takes. And I think just conditioning them to say yes, mirroring, using because, if you do those things, you are going to be well on your way to selling.
And remember, this is really important. Nothing happens till you make the sale.
Yeah.
I mean, you can produce all you want. You can do as many web pages as you want. You can do all this other stuff. Nothing happens till you make the sale. And people sometimes are reluctant to get that, but it's really crucial. Sales is so important, and it's so much fun.
It is fun. You can have a blast doing it. I know I do. Anytime we get a new purchase order, a new contract, I'm up here doing a dance because it's just, there's nothing more rewarding than that to me. It's like this huge high, especially when it's your own company and you're actually starting to see it take flight. It's just a beautiful thing to watch, so I totally get it. Now, the other thing that is great about you is you use laughter and comedy quite a bit in your talks. And I believe that it helps you to convey your messages because there's a certain component of us that we want to be entertained. We want to have fun. We want to laugh. But what if you're not a natural comedian? Is there a way for that person who's listening right now to bring comedy into storytelling, even if they're not a natural comedian?
Sure. I tell a story that I got from Wanda Sykes, for example,
Yes.
and several of them. And sometimes I credit her and sometimes I don't. But, I'm a small audience. So, self-deprecating humor is okay as long as you don't put yourself down, especially women.
Yeah.
Because we're used to doing that. So, for example, Wanda Sykes, and I can use this. I said, why is it the only place I can grow, or the only place on my face I cannot grow hair is my eyebrows? They got skinny. As I grew older, they got skinny. What happened? Laughter, we know that people are more receptive when you create an altered brainwave state for them, an altered state of being or of awareness. Laughter creates it. Storytelling creates it. Crying creates it. So you use an emotion to create the altered state of being. It's like my husband used to say, you fake them with your left before you get them with your right. But even just tell stories about your family.
Yeah.
There's a fun, gentle, maybe funny. Just spend some time thinking about it. If you don't think you're funny, just think of some funny stories. Everybody has them.
Yeah.
And you just pull them out when appropriate. I can tell you, my husband, I'm half Greek and half German. So my husband would call me Zorba the Führer. You need to know your audience as well. I told that to a young lady at a wedding we were both attending not long ago, and she goes, "Who's Zorba?"
Oh, no.
She says, "I know Zorro." I went, "Oh, no, I got to rework this."
You're going to have to rework this back into pop culture. You have
I
to
know,
rethink
right?
that joke. But you're right, though. Wanda Sykes is great. I mean, she's got a Netflix special on that you can watch, and you can really pick up, I think, a lot of really, really good techniques just by watching like how she gets laughs. And I think she's a great model, a great example for people to study.
Yes.
The other thing that I want to talk about is retention. Retention of our employees or even students in our student organizations, that's a super big deal today for universities, for college students. How can we better retain our people?
Make your office, school, classroom someplace they want to be. Now, in order to do that, you need to listen to them, a little strategic listening. I had a friend who, she was managing a dry cleaners. And she says, I really want to make people want to come in here. So we kind of kicked it around and we said, let's put a fountain in a little water feature in the lobby. Oh my gosh, people loved it because it changes, the negative ions in the place, and it was just more peaceful. So people are rushing in to get their laundry and take it back and do the shirts and on and on. But just for a moment, they were in a place where they felt good. So you want to help people feel good. And you got to know what they want. Give them what they want and charge them for it.
Yeah.
As we say.
You're absolutely right. I think it's something that we need to think about more often. I mean, it's probably why in fancy restaurants, maybe they have like a fish tank or something like that, right? I mean, it's like, the question is how do we get them to spend more time here, to be relaxed here, and feel more comfortable here? And you got to really think about it. And I think that strategic listening that you're talking about is really the key. when was the last time we surveyed our members, our customers, in terms of, the ambiance in our office or our restaurant or what have you? I think we need to ask. We need to ask our members, ask our customers, what is their experience like, and then get that feedback. We can't assume things. And I think if we ask, they'll tell us very clearly what is off here.
Because nobody ever asks them.
I know. I know. That is the big problem, I see it all the time with student organizations where people, just as fast as they're coming in, they're going out the back door, and they're, sitting here wondering, like, how come we're not retaining our members? And I'm like, have you ever asked them why they're leaving? Like, just ask them. They'll tell you. They'll be like, this is what sucks. Right. And so you have to listen to your members. I think that's why God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listen to what they're trying to tell you. And if you don't ask them, then you'll never find out, So start doing those exit interviews, start asking people who are leaving why they're leaving, and then correct. And, maybe, just maybe, that person will come back to you, or you'll get better for the future. So either way, it's a win.
Right. I create programs, online programs for my database. I've got about 5,000 in my mailing list. And so I'll say, maybe I can do this, or maybe I can do that, or I'll do a mindfulness workshop, and then somebody said, why don't you just ask them what they want? Ask them. I sent out a little thing to my mailing list. I said, I'm thinking about doing a program. What do you think? What would you like to do? I got answers that I never would have thought of. So that was good.
That's a good lesson. I like that a lot. All right. So we love good food here at the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. And good food, okay? Because you had a restaurant. I mean, you guys are, sitting there evaluating all these other restaurants in town. So you know something about good food. So the next time that I'm in the Seattle area, where should I go for a great meal?
There's a restaurateur here named Tom Douglas.
Uh-huh.
And his food is exquisite. It's fusion, food, taking foods that you never thought of putting together, and they're so good. Now, if you want seafood, which Seattle, we want seafood.
Seattle, hello.
Ray's Boathouse, Cutter's Crab House. By the way, the crab in Seattle are like this.
Yeah, monster.
East Coast crabs are like,
yes.
I'm not saying, I'm just saying. But I mean, you could starve to death trying to get the meat out of an East Coast or a southern crab.
Yeah.
These crabs are huge, and it's just boom, and you get the meat. It's just exquisite. Dungeness crab. If you ever get a chance for Dungeness crab, get it.
Yeah. They are different. I mean, I was raised, in the East Coast. So I spent a lot of time in Maryland, and they have some really, really good crabs. It's the snow crab, so they're much smaller than the Dungeness crabs. The meat is really, really sweet, but you're right. I mean, I have to admit, you got to be fair. You got to call balls and strikes the right way. I mean, the amount of work that goes into, disassembling the snow crab, it's a lot of work for very little payoff. But you go out to Seattle, you have those Dungeness crab, it's a whole nother conversation. So kudos to you. You have the larger size crabs.
and just get Dungeness. They got Alaska King and they got snow crab. To my mind, Dungeness is the king.
Yeah, it is really good. All right. Well, I'm going to go and check that out. I do love seafood. I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and you better not get seafood in Nashville, Tennessee, because I got to tell you, it's not fresh. So don't even try it. Forget it. Go to barbecue. Go to some other style of food, because Seattle's where you want to go for the seafood. That's where you're going. All right. So if our students, if they want to bring you in as a speaker on their college campus, where should they go to connect with you?
Well, I love speaking with young people because we want to get them on the right track while they're still young, so they can succeed right out of the gate. Katie Evans Speaks, Katie Evans Speaks. There's 2 Evans and there's another S. So it's katieevansspeaks.com, and you can see what I do and give me a call.
That's fantastic. You heard her. Go to katieevansspeaks.com and bring her to your college campus. Katie, thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Thank you, Michael. It was fun.
All right. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this talk with Katie, make sure you like it on social media. Make sure you share it with other college students that need to hear Katie's message. And we'll see you on another episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.